You're listening to the Renegade Blitz. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at RBlitzPod, and at Blitz Videos. And subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app.
It's the Renegade Blitz podcast, and we're here to talk about a great night of football last Saturday, Christmas Eve game, the Steelers versus the Raiders, and it's fitting. The Steelers won that game against the Raiders some 50 years ago, 13-7, and the final score was 13-10 in a very emotional night at Acrisure Stadium. Of course, Franco Harris's number officially retired. Some of you guys didn't like the fact that NFL Network had to cut away from the ceremony, but that's just how it is. Sometimes you got to pay bills as much as it's probably not the right thing to do. It's the money thing to do. So, it's different. But guys, especially you, Brandon, just talk about the energy in that stadium on Christmas night.
Electric. People was like, I thought it was about 80% full.
Yeah, what was it? It was 8 degrees, I think, at kickoff.
Yeah, 8 degrees. It was pretty bad. But it was like, we just had. It was just like I was like, I ain't missing this night. It was just so crazy that it was exciting. It was a mid game itself until like the fourth quarter, but it was just an electric night. You just couldn't tell the game was just kind of sloppy. What I will say is this: the skill players and the offense, they're getting better. The offense the schematics are still trash. Don't get don't get it right twisted. But Pickett, Freiermuth, Harris, Jaylen Warren, Pickett, you got something there.
Yeah.
And we could get, and then Deontay Johnson finally got his head straight. So I'm excited. This is going to be interesting next year. See what happens.
Yeah, I tweeted this morning. I was saying how it's pretty incredible that Tomlin's got the team to at least win 7 games, because I didn't think this roster is really that. I mean, they have young talent on offense. They have some pieces on defense. They have some big holes on defense, the cornerback, inside linebacker, defensive line, and like an offense. I think left tackle is the big need. The guard. They've been okay at guard. I think. I think they probably centers. Mason Cole's okay, but I mean they have talent at the skill position. They really just need a real offensive coordinator. I think that's really. I think Matt Canada is holding them back, but I mean. At one point this year, I didn't even know the Steelers were going to win 5 games, and I think a combination of like they played some pretty bad teams over the last couple of weeks, but also I think Tomlin's experience, he'll get you over, he'll beat Arthur Smith, the head coach of the Falcons, or Steve Wilkes, and then Mike McDaniel. Was it Josh McDaniels, right?
Josh.
Yeah, which is. He's not a good head coach. I don't think. I don't think that was a good hire by the Raiders. Another questionable move by that organization, because Mike Mayock really did a terrible job there. But Brandon, when you were up in the press box, you should have asked the GM about what's it feel like to clean up Mike Mayock's mess.
I didn't want to do that because it was like this is crazy. It was like the Raiders had Kenny Pickett's interception, do that like team picture pose. I took Amanda Gotzi. I was like, I hate when they do that. He came up to me, and told me, said, and I agree. I was like, yeah, I don't know what they said. It started during COVID, but I saw that as early as like 2018.
Yeah, that's why.
No, if you want to get technical, like the entire team photo thing, it started with Carolina with Cam Newton. But that was offense doing it. The defense, yeah, they were doing it whenever they were sitting on the sideline. The defense doing that. I'm not going to question you saying 2018. I'll just go back and look at it and confirm it. but definitely during COVID with the end zone camera thing, that was where it truly became apparent. And it was fun. It was all right. It was cool. But now, even for someone who's always down for the players, if you make a big play, do your dance, celebrate, be as obnoxious as possible. That one now I just don't get, because it's like you're trying to return it into the end zone and you haven't done that. If you pick it off and then you go all the way back and score a touchdown off of it, yeah, team celebration. But if it's for just especially when it happened on back-to-back interceptions for both sides, I just don't get it.
Yeah, and they did it, and then the Steelers turned around and did it. He was like, I was like, really? But when that happened, that was actually after the Raiders pick when I said that.
Oh, okay. Earlier in the game. It wasn't the one at the very end or near the very
No, this was the first, the Raiders, their interception. After I made that call, I was like, and then, like you said, the next day, they turned it back. I'm like, really? Y'all going to turn around? He's like, Ray was like, man, they need to stop celebrating and start making a play. They need to get to the end zone.
But I wanted to also talk about this because you're talking about Matt Canada as well. We got the celebration segue out. Steve Smith on NFL Network called his offense Saturday-ish, which I mean, for the past 3 weeks, I could argue if this was a swan song for Matt Canada, it's where the offense actually looked, for lack of a better term, at least like a passable offense. I wouldn't call it an NFL offense. I'd call it passable. And maybe if you squint real hard, an NFL offense. But there's been reports that the Steelers look like they are going to go ahead and fire Matt Canada at the end of this season.
Hold on.
I don't see how you could keep them. I mean, they scored 13 points against the Raiders. I mean, I know the weather played a factor and everything, and but I mean that was a slugfest. I mean, I was just waiting for the Steelers to score a touchdown, but I mean they got it at the end. The game winner. That was a great drive by Kenny Pickett.
It was. What? I was serious when I said, I said the Steelers. I told them the Steelers are going to win because they would not have walked out of that stadium alive. They would have rioted, I think. I'm serious.
Yeah, I mean they had that was a big game, a lot of emotion. The defense really stepped up there in the fourth quarter. I thought, and late in the game,
defense played well all game.
Yeah, the one long drive at the beginning of the game, that was the only blemish the whole night. I mean, they shut down Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs. Pretty much they shut him down for the most part. But I mean, Derek Carr, he was bad. Some of those interceptions were really, really awful. And now, just kind of segue, he got benched today, and he's away from the team for the final 2 weeks. So it looks like he's going to head to a new team after this year.
He's away? They just set them away?
They're benching him for Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, he's leaving.
I know that.
He's leaving the team. So I don't know who decided what, but Carr doesn't want to be a distraction to the team, according to the reports.
Right.
So I seen the benching for 2 games. So he's not even going to be in uniform. He's inactive.
So he's basically getting the Mason Rudolph treatment.
Yeah, he's not even going to be around the team.
Wow.
He's away from the whole.
That's crazy. And
look, I didn't even know you can do that. How being in I thought you would have to be there.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning was. I mean, it came out this after like around 5 maybe.
Okay.
Look,
I knew about him getting benched, but I didn't know about that. I didn't know about him not being.
Yeah, that was
he's
weird.
Going to be away from the team.
That's weird, but I'm going to say this. I think a lot of people, before they figured out the Kenny Pickett to Pittsburgh thing, a lot of people were saying Derek Carr would be a good bridge quarterback. And I put it to you like this. I think it's a mutual in which he needs a new place to go to. Yeah. Because let's be honest, in terms of a pro quarterback, he's better than his brother was, no doubt.
That's not saying much.
That's not saying much, but there is some elite traits in him. Like, for example, that throw to Renfro was on the money, and then Renfro just took it and did what he does best, which is made moves out there. When I look at the interceptions, especially the one to Minka that was basically a straight deflection right off of Renfro's hands, I view Derek Carr as someone that could he'd be perfect in New York. Probably.
For the Jets, yeah.
Yeah, for the Jets. For the Jets, he'd probably be something that'd be respectable for them.
See, he has a club option for $32 million next year.
They're not going to do that. They're going to cut him to save money.
Okay, so here's the report. Just so people I didn't if people thought because it did sound pretty crazy. But here's from Ian Rappaport's official Twitter account. As part of the discussions that took place over the last few days, both sides concluded that it was best for Raiders quarterback Derek Carr to step away for the final 2 games to avoid the obvious distractions. Sources say he won't practice and will be listed as non-injury related.
Because, all right, there it is. For 2023, dead cap it is only $5 million. That's their dead cap hit. I'm looking at sportrat.com. So, yeah, if you're going to cut him, you got to cut it now. Because he signed an extension, I think last year, maybe last year, maybe in the offseason, I'm not sure. But they gave him an extension that kicks in this year. So I'm guessing that they don't want to pay that out, or they're going to trade him.
Who do you think will take over for you? Who's even free agents options for quarterback? Or what do you think they're going to do? Trade maybe?
Yeah, cut him.
No, I'm saying who's going to be their next quarterback after him?
They're probably going to draft the quarterback.
Draft one? Okay, yeah. I mean, they'll have a pretty high pick probably.
Right now, as of they stand right now, they would be. Yeah, because I think they're in the top 10 at this point.
They could be. There's there's a bunch of teams that have 7 wins or 6 or 5. It's all jumbled up pretty much.
Yeah, everyone's really middle of the pack this year.
Right now, they would be the 9th pick. They would have the 9th pick.
And who knows? They might trade up or whatnot.
There's no words on quarterbacks in a draft. Everyone's been painting Bryce Young as the number 1 pick for Houston this year, but Young hasn't even committed to the draft. And after Bama's season, there's a chance that he could potentially stay back for another year. So who knows?
But I don't know. I think he's a little. You got Will Levis. I ain't feeling these quarterbacks too much more than I'm feeling these last year's quarterbacks, honestly.
I think if there's any proof when it comes to it with the Steelers and what teams did last year, if you got your guy and you feel that you could do something with a guy, you draft him. That's just how it is. I mean, imagine if the Steelers didn't go for a quarterback last year, and then you take a look at it. If Bryce Young isn't going, Caleb Williams isn't until the next year.
Yeah.
I'm not really impressed with Will Levis. I mean, someone can probably convince me on him, and I'm not really sure who else is going to be in that quarterback.
CJ Stroud. Who was the last Ohio State quarterback that has done anything in the league? And don't give me no goddamn Justin Fields. Ever.
I wasn't gonna go with that. I mean, I go, all right, you got me there, but I'll put it to you like this: I'm not really deterred when it comes to quarterbacks from a certain school not panning out, because there's only 32 starting jobs, and maybe 15 of those are anything worthy of keeping past their rookie contract. So when you look at it, everything's a crapshoot. you just got to build around the guy and commit to him for a little bit, maybe longer than the 2 years that the New York Jets gave Zach Wilson.
He was terrible. He's horrible. And
he might be terrible, but you have to say
they beat the Steelers.
Like this.
Yeah, right. And that's a key loss that might keep them out of the playoffs.
Yes,
Dolphins
exactly.
lost, and New England, and Ty, you mentioned on before the show about the playoff, or no, I think we might have mentioned during the show about how the Steelers could be eliminated.
No, we haven't mentioned that. We move on. Let's move on to
the scenarios
Steelers versus Ravens. The scenarios basically, now that the Steelers game has moved from 1 p.m. to 8:20, because of course, what's better than primetime Steelers Ravens? Even if one team is not necessarily good right now, in many opinions outside of Pittsburgh and some of them inside, frankly. But it's Steelers Ravens, which you always know is guaranteed to be, if anything, entertaining.
Yep. Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson? No, he should. He's not. He's not.
He didn't practice today.
Huh?
He didn't practice today.
He did not.
Yeah.
He ain't playing another down for them until he gets a contract extension.
And he deserves it.
He shouldn't. Gotta protect you gotta get this bag. We're risking it for these dudes.
Yeah, Ravens reporter said it's looking like it's going to be Huntley again. So I mean, Wednesday, it's always early in the week on Wednesday, and Harbaugh, he really didn't say much when he was asked about it. He was kind of pretty, close to the vest. He basically gave them nothing. But I mean, they're a completely different team without Jackson. He's such a dynamic player. But Ravens, I mean, they have a great defense. They seem like they always, for the most part, defend the Steelers' running game pretty well, and they have two good cornerbacks. So I don't think the Steelers' offense really matches up too well against the. Nope. Even though Pickens did play well against Humphrey last time they played.
Right.
I just don't trust Matt Canada against any Ravens defensive coordinator or John Harbaugh. He has an input on that side of the ball too. So
plus, it's another thing is this. We had Mid Trubisky play most of the game last time. We didn't have Pickett. They didn't have Pickett. So different matchup, different, but I don't think it would have mattered. But like you said, Mid would have won that game, Ty. So I can't. He's less than Mid. He's quarter.
Wow, that's rough. That's rough, Chief. Well, let's take a look at the Steelers' playoff hopes. So, according to 538.com, the Steelers are 4%, and the New York Times says 3%. So, obviously, the Steelers have to win out. They have to beat Baltimore Sunday night and then go back home for the Browns. A Chargers win over the Colts, of course, that punched their ticket into the playoffs. Now, the only way for them to have been in the playoffs in place of Los Angeles was to finish 8-9, and basically LA needed to finish 8-9, and the Steelers would have lost all tiebreakers. Basically, Odyssey is so weird with explaining this. One playoff spot left. If the Dolphins win at New England 1 p.m. on Sunday, the Steelers are eliminated, and it's likely that the Steelers will have a fighting chance because Teddy Bridgewater, the backup quarterback for the Dolphins, is starting, and that's where some of the slide for the Dolphins happened before Tua came back and ripped the Steelers up on Sunday night. If the Patriots beat Miami, which would make them 8-8, they would need to lose to the Bills in a game that might not mean anything to the Bills because they'll be clinched, and who knows, if they keep up on the pace, they might actually have that number 1 seed. The loser, Titans-Jags, on Week 18 would finish with 9 losses, and the other would win the AFC South. So that will take care of itself, barring ties, which can always be involved. So let's just see how it is. The Jets would win the tiebreaker with the Steelers if that happens. So the Jets would have to lose to the Seahawks this week and then beat Miami. The Raiders are the only team that's still eligible, but the Steelers would have to finish, of course, with 9 wins, as Las Vegas can't get to 9 wins. So basically, it's a lot of stuff that goes through there. It hurts my head. I hope that you followed that well because it's just weird. But I think the Steelers had slightly more of a chance last year to make the playoffs than they made it. So as long as you have a percentage in your corner, there's always a chance.
If they beat Baltimore, they'll get in. Because when I size up these matchups up, first of all, you're gonna go. Miami has to go to New England.
Yes.
We all know how that turns out. It's always 1-1. It's always home team most of the time. And then Buffalo should beat New England. They could be playing for something. Yeah, I have to check out the records, but they already clinched everything. But they clinched everything.
I think they clinched at least a playoff spot. They might have clinched the AFC East.
No, I mean clinched everything as in home field.
Oh yeah, okay.
We're talking home field right now. They've done that. Yeah, with the Jets, Seattle had to beat the Jets. But you're playing against Zach Wilson. Enough said. All right. And the Jets beat Miami. That's going to be the hard one. Whew. And what will that game be at? Jets in Miami. Huh?
Jets in Miami?
Yeah.
I think it might be at Jets.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think anything for the Jets right now that isn't Zach Wilson gives them a better chance. Even if you're putting Post-Gazette reporter Mike White out there, I think that's a better chance. But Mike White they have
is Zach Wilson versus Teddy Bridgewater. I'm gonna have to take Bridgewater for that.
I mean, Bridgewater is the definition of a journeyman. I still think he could have been more if it wasn't for that injury. But
I would still take him over Zach Wilson.
I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you in that situation. But as always, the games have to be played. You can't put it on paper right now. So
yeah,
who knows what happens? I think the best thing for the Steelers is to take care of business, and that would push them back over 500 and secure Mike Tomlin having another non-losing season at the very least. Of course, there could be a tie somewhere.
Well, they would still have to beat the Browns.
True. But at the very least, they would be in the driving force for at least a non-losing season, which is always one thing to look at for the Steelers. If they somehow they snatch at least somewhere being, as you'd like to call them, mid out of the jaws of being terrible. That's always the Steelers' MO. And hey, they're comfortable there, and they've done it with much more needed to be around them. In the case of the early 2010s, post the final Super Bowl appearance for this team.
Yeah, this is so you like mid compared to terrible. Yeah, that's kind of fun to do, but it is it is what it is. They just can't. You said they're incapable of completely failing. I'll give them that.
Because there's always something, and I think from here on out, if the Steelers if you grade the Steelers to be under 500 in some way, shape, or form, for example, I gave them 6-11. I think you automatically have to give them 2 wins because something in this league is just going to bounce their way that puts them at least in the conversation of being in the middle tier, and if they're graded to be in the middle tier, expect them to be somewhere in the upper echelon, because it's always how it is with the Steelers. Whatever you grade them, you need to add +2. Chris, I was the most negative out of the group at 6-11. You were 7-10.
Yeah, 7-10.
Yeah. So now look at them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, this week's game, I think it's gonna be tough, but I mean, I think they could beat Cleveland in week 17 or week 18, I should say. So yeah, I mean, I think they'll finish 8-9 or probably 7-10.
We'll see. We'll see what happens, and of course, we're finally going to have a preview podcast for the first time in a while. We will have Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens on our podcast. Expect that to go live on Twitter Friday at 7:30, 8 p.m., something around there. We'll figure out those details. But again, thank you for tuning in. If you're on Twitter, also thank you for tuning in on Pittsburgh Steelers Nation on Facebook. And that's all for us. That's Chris Ward. That's Brandon Walker. I'm Ty Polk. You have been listening to the Renegade Blitz.
Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, at @RBlitzPod, and @BlitzVideos. And subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The Renegade Blitz podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts.